Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Today, we're diving into something truly incredible, almost unbelievable if it weren't for the fact that the person who exposed it lived it. We're talking about economic hitmen, or EHMs.
Yeah, it sounds like something straight out of a spy thriller, right? But the author, John Perkins, describes it as a game as old as empire, just evolved with globalization. He says, "I should know I was an EHM."
That line just sends chills down your spine. I should know I was an EHM. It really sets the stage for a deep, disturbing look into how global power truly operates. So, for listeners who might not be familiar, Ryan, what exactly is an economic hitman?
Well, according to Perkins, they're highly paid professionals whose job is to cheat countries globally out of trillions of dollars. They funnel money from institutions like the World Bank, USAID, organizations we often think of as aid providers, straight into the coffers of huge corporations and a handful of incredibly wealthy families. These families, he claims, are the ones who control the planet's natural resources.
So it's not about helping developing nations, but actually about entrapping them? That's a pretty stark contrast to the public image of these institutions.
Dorea, the aid is essentially a Trojan horse. It creates massive debt, which then gives the EHMs and the corporations they serve leverage over those countries. The aim is to promote U.S. commercial interests and ensure loyalty. It's a system designed to create a global empire, as he puts it, rather than foster genuine development.
And the tools they use, the text is quite explicit. Fraudulent financial reports, rigged elections, payoffs, extortion, even sex and murder. That's a terrifying arsenal.
It is. It highlights the lengths they'll go to. It's not just about economic manipulation. It bleeds into political and even personal sabotage. Perkins mentions his own teacher, Claudine, who told him, "My assignment is to mold you into an economic hitman. No one can know about your involvement, not even your wife. And then, chillingly, once you're in for life."
Wow, in for life. That implies a deep, almost cult-like commitment and severe consequences if you try to leave or, in Perkins's case, expose them. What were some of the real-world consequences he saw?
He dedicates the initial draft of his book to two heads of state, Jaime Roldos of Ecuador and Omar Torrijos of Panama. Both were his clients, men he respected. Both died in fiery crashes, which Perkins unequivocally states were not accidental. They were assassinated because they opposed this fraternity of corporate, government, and banking heads. He says the EHMs failed to bring them around, and then the other type of hitmen, the CIA-sanctioned jackals, stepped in.
So there's a hierarchy of coercion, from economic pressure to outright assassination. That's a critical point to understand. It's not just financial maneuvering, it can escalate to deadly force. This makes Perkins's decision to write this book even more astonishing.
Absolutely. He actually started writing it in 1982, right after Roldos and Torrijos died, calling it Conscience of an Economic Hitman. But he was persuaded to stop. He tried 4 more times over 20 years, each time influenced by world events like the U.S. invasion of Panama, the Gulf War, Somalia, and the rise of Osama bin Laden. Each time he was convinced to stop again, through threats or bribes.
Threats and bribes. For 2 decades. That's an immense amount of pressure to silence someone. What finally broke that cycle and convinced him to publish?
It's a really poignant part of his story. He says the short answer is his daughter, Jessica. When she graduated college and went out on her own, he told her about considering publishing the book and shared his fears. Her response was, "Don't worry, Dad. If they get you, I'll take over where you left off. We need to do this for the grandchildren I hope to give you someday."
That's incredibly powerful. A daughter's courage giving her father the strength to face such immense risk. It shifts from a personal confession to a generational responsibility.
It totally does. And the longer answer, he explains, connects to his dedication to the U.S. ideals, the Founding Fathers' vision of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and his determination after 9/11 not to sit idly by. He saw the EHM system turning the Republic into a global empire, and he felt a profound duty to expose it.
So the threats didn't work, and the bribes didn't work. His family and his core beliefs finally outweighed the fear. But then, if these people are so dangerous, why wasn't he killed for telling his story?
He explains that the book itself became his insurance policy. Once the information was out there, widely published, killing him wouldn't suppress the story, it would only validate it and draw more attention. It would confirm everything he wrote, making him a martyr. That's a pretty clever, if terrifying, form of self-preservation.
It speaks to the power of truth, doesn't it? That getting the story out is the only real defense. But he also mentions that the original book came out in 2004, and now there's a new edition, The New Confessions of an Economic Hitman. What changed that made a new edition necessary?
He says the world has changed radically. The EHM system, which relies on debt and fear, is even more treacherous now than it was in 2004. The ranks of EHMs have expanded dramatically, and they've adopted new disguises and tools. And here's the kicker. He argues that we in the United States have been hit badly. The entire world has been hit.
That's a profound shift. It's no longer just about developing nations. The system has turned on the very country that, in some ways, created it. So how does he suggest this new EHM breed operates, and what are these new disguises?
He claims that people playing similar roles are now far more abundant. They have euphemistic titles and walk the corridors of Fortune 500 companies like Exxon, Walmart, General Motors, Monsanto. They use the EHM system to promote their private interests. Essentially, the lines have blurred even further. It's less about covert government operations and more about the overt pursuit of corporate power, woven into the fabric of everyday business.
So it's not just cloak and dagger anymore, it's the everyday corporate world, manipulating economic systems for profit, but on a global, state-level scale. That makes it even harder to identify and combat because it's cloaked in legitimacy.
Exactly, and he says this story is your story too. He argues we are all complicit. We must take responsibility for our world. The EHMs succeed because we collaborate with them. They seduce, cajole, and threaten us, but they win only when we look the other way or simply give in to their tactics.
That's a heavy message. It's easy to point fingers at shadowy figures, but much harder to accept our own role in allowing it to happen. What does he mean by complicit and looking the other way?
I think it means that by not questioning where our products come from, how our financial systems operate, or the real impact of our foreign policy, we enable the system. By not demanding transparency or accountability from corporations and governments, we allow them to continue these practices. It's the quiet acceptance, or even just the lack of awareness, that allows the EHMs to thrive.
And he links this directly to the crises we face today: economic, political, social, environmental. He says we teeter on the edge of disaster. This isn't just an historical account, it's a warning about our present and future.
Totally. He sees the EHM system as the foundation of these seemingly insurmountable global crises. It's how we got to where we are. The unchecked pursuit of corporate and nationalistic power, enabled by debt and exploitation, has led us to this precipice. He wants us to understand the roots of these problems so we can actually address them.
So it's not just a confession, but a call to action, a plea for change. What's his ultimate message or hope for readers?
He frames it as, admitting to a problem is the first step toward finding a solution. Confessing a sin is the beginning of redemption. He wants the book to be the start of our salvation, to inspire us to dedicate ourselves to creating balanced and honorable societies. It's about recognizing the systemic issues and taking collective responsibility to shift towards a more equitable world.
That's a really hopeful message embedded in a very dark truth. It's about seeing the system, understanding our role, and then having the courage to challenge it. It makes you think about everything you consume, every news report, every claim of foreign aid.
It definitely does. And I think that's the point. It's not about being paralyzed by the revelations, but empowered by them. To realize that we have agency, that looking the other way is a choice, and choosing to engage, to question, to demand better, is also a choice. It's the only way to counteract the forces he describes.
It's a huge reminder that the world isn't always what it seems on the surface, and that digging deeper, even when it's uncomfortable, is essential for truly understanding the forces shaping our lives and futures. This book, this story, really feels like a crucial piece of that puzzle.
Absolutely. It's a challenging read, I think, but an incredibly important one. It demands a new perspective, and that's often the first step to real change. It connects the dots between geopolitics, corporate power, and our daily lives in a way few other narratives do.
Indeed. So for our listeners, if this discussion has piqued your interest, we highly recommend diving into Confessions of an Economic Hitman or The New Confessions of an Economic Hitman. It's not just a book, it's an education.
It really is, and it encourages us all to be more vigilant, to ask those tougher questions, and to recognize that our individual choices do contribute to the larger global narrative. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive today.
Thank you, Ryan, for shedding light on such a complex and vital topic. And thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll catch you next time.